Hear us, Odin, all father of the gods. As we summon the shadows of ages past when the thread-spinning Norns rule the fates of men. As we review and have others hear of a prince's vengeance quenched at the fiery gates of hell. Here, with our normal cast, with myself, Jose, and Hannah.
Hello.
Yeah, that was the intro was too good for our podcast, if I'm being honest.
I'm hoping to slowly, upgrade the situation.
Yeah.
Next time we'll have a choir, going, actually doing the deep throat.
I don't do improv. You gotta let me know ahead of time.
It's okay. No, that was a solo act. I wasn't expecting anything extra.
That was great. I it was the best intro we've had.
I think he's trying to outshine the rest of us. I don't like it.
Oh no.
Hey, exactly. A constellation must have a shining star.
Wow.
And I'm calling it.
Mine.
Yep. But we just watched The Northman. I just watched it for a second time, which is the reason why I'm leading this podcast. Usually we give that honor to the individual who's already has had the opportunity to bake in an opinion about the subject matter.
Not anymore. You crushed it. You're the intro guy now.
I mean, if every intro in the movie that we do is as badass as this one, for sure. I mean, all I'm doing is plagiarizing. I mean, I'll call myself out right now. I had the script in front of me as I was reading it. I was like, I better not mess up these words.
Oh, it was an epic intro, and epic in like both sense of the word too, right? Like, who was supposed to be the voice behind the volcano during that scene?
I don't know. They just within the script they just call them He Witch. Oh, okay. So I would imagine that it might be the same actor who was the He Witch inside of the cave when later on in the movie they meet. I would say, if anything, that's probably who it is.
Yeah, the throat singing guy.
Yeah,
that wouldn't surprise me.
Yep. But let's not get too divested away from our structure that we're slowly trying to make. So you guys had never seen this movie. You guys were both very eager to see this movie, and Hannah more than anyone, as far as I understand. So let's just start right away, fresh with first opinions. Go ahead, Hannah.
Yeah, this was great. It's been a minute since I've seen The Lion King.
You mean King Lear? Or
Yeah.
Hamlet?
Or Hamlet,
no,
yeah.
it's definitely a Hamlet derivative.
Yeah.
But honestly, just first impressions, keep them like fresh and high level. I really enjoyed this. This was really entertaining, and I love all of the Norse celebration type stuff. I think it's really sweet and empowering. So there was a lot of that peppered in.
Fun trivia question: who was your favorite character?
These names are not sticking.
It's okay. You can go by the Witch of the Birch Tree for Olga. His name's Amleth. Fjolnir, right, is the name of his uncle.
Yeah.
You have the Wikipedia page.
Yeah, I do.
I gotta go with Olga, I think.
Olga? Not Sir Smells a Lot?
You mean Nosy.
Nosy?
It's mean to make fun of handicaps.
Yeah, but it was like self-wrought handicap. You know what I mean? He wasn't born without a nose.
That doesn't make him not handicapped.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's like I only have sympathy for non-self-wrought handicaps, If anything, that just marks him as an asshole. Who did that to you?
Someone hates you.
Yeah. You got too close to someone, didn't you?
I was wondering if it might be kind of like a badge of honor for like Viking type people.
I don't think that one in particular.
I don't think you can spin that one around too hard. Yeah. I mean, if sorry. Let's go, Matt, with your first opinion.
Oh, I was just this movie is like the coolest fucking video game I've ever watched. Like 100%. Like the whole, especially with there being at the end of the prologue with him chanting his like 3 main quests over and over.
Yeah.
He's like, you gotta kill my uncle, save my mother, avenge the dad. Kill my uncle, save my mother. He's like, yes, I got it.
This game doesn't have a quest tracker. I gotta log it
Yeah, I
in.
gotta log these.
Honestly, the part that felt the most video gamey to me was retrieving the weapon for the quest.
Oh,
Right.
100%.
Yeah, the ancient sword that can only come out at night and is quenched in human blood. It's so metal.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly.
It's a Tamrielic lore item that he had to go get from the Draugr.
From a Draugr. Really, literally a Draugr.
Like, Draugr. Yeah, it's called Draugr. Yeah, on the nose.
It's a good thing they cut it off at the beginning of the movie, or else you would have called it out too soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting how a decade outside of Skyrim now, like how much, like, you know, when it comes to Nordic situations like that, like how much of it is your original conception, and at this point, like how much of it is just the one. I mean, like literally, the past decade was just enamored with the Nordic like aesthetic, you know, Nordic, and like the more, you know, like fantastical aspects of, you know, of Nordic culture and stuff like that. So this movie almost just feels like the obvious like culmination and climax of essentially all of those fetishes, almost, you know, like cultural fetishes that we've like come to just like fester and stuff like that.
Yeah, having just come off of playing the newest God of War, not Ragnarok yet, but it's like refreshing, I think is the word. I think, like, even though I keep thinking in my head, he's gonna go to Sovngarde now. No, not Sovngarde, not Sovngarde. It's the other one. But yeah, the
Valhalla.
Valhalla and Valkyrie, and seeing all these interesting spellings in the subtitles too. Because they differ from God of War, and then Skyrim takes its own spin on it too and uses it differently. And yeah, so it's nice to have like all this pre-pop culture knowledge, and that's what it is pop culture knowledge of like Norse mythology. But it's still so metal. It is so absolutely metal. You know, it makes me think like this is like which way does it go? Is it Norse mythology is always represented as being so metal because like that's like the art spin that we put on it as a culture, or is it because like it comes from like, no, the shit is metal, like they're cutting heads off and stabbing each other in the hearts, it's brutal,
biting throats out.
Hey, for sure. I mean, that at that point you have to consider the Christian bias that essentially veils upon our conceptions of Vikings and Nordic people like that, right? Because at the end of the day, it was the victor who told the story last. And the Christians were essentially just decimated by the Vikings. So the degree that they had to convert them as the only way to be able to keep them from killing them all. They're like, no, wait, our God's better.
This everlasting life is cooler,
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I would imagine that's probably a little bit of that, you know, and just the amount of time, you know, because like the Viking culture came up in like the 1100s to like the 1300s, I believe. So that's like in the perfect time and place where people just began to like write stuff down like consistently, you know. So because of that, I mean, if you tell the epic, that's how it's going to be told from here on out, you know what I mean? Because it's like there aren't any video cameras, there aren't any pictures. Nobody's going to be able to like source check you on this. And if anybody tries to call you out, you punch them in the fucking mouth, you know?
Minimum.
Yeah, at minimum. Exactly. So, you know, at that point, it's like, I would imagine that it's probably a strong 50-50 or 60-40 in relation to, yes, the stuff was as metal as as it feels, you know, obviously because not as it's portrayed. Because I would imagine there's, you know, the Hollywood aspect and everything that we see in terms of the Nordic aesthetic, you know, or the ancient Nordic aesthetic. But at the same time, I mean, like those conceptions have to have a kernel of truth in there somewhere. And in the same way that, like, I'm sure that Aztec warriors weren't as brutalistic as maybe showcased in popular media, but I'm still pretty fucking sure they were pretty brutal, you know, like even by their own standards that they wrote down on their walls, because they, you know, again, 1300s, like people were bothering to actually write shit down at this point. they're like, no, we want her to be remembered as hard asses.
Mhm.
That's our thing. So, you know,
I wonder if there's like a 10 to 15% of it too that's like personal connection to games we've played. Because especially this one that felt really video gamey, I felt like I was linking it back to my Skyrim experience a little bit as I was going. And it's like there's a great feeling of empowerment that you get from that game
Mhm.
that some of the music in this movie is very reminiscent of.
Oh yeah. Yeah, not to jump all the way to the end, but major Duel of the Fates like vibes at the gates of hell. And just the whole almost what do they call it? The Maori. They call it a haka, but they're not doing a haka. They're doing like a Viking like scream or something. But it's reminiscent of that, right?
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
essentially. Just, I mean, Amleth, right, is a berserker by trade, essentially. So, yeah.
Have you seen Mallrats? Sorry, it's a tangent.
That's Clerks, isn't it?
Yes, you're right. Yeah.
Seen Clerks. I don't think I've seen Mallrats.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so he's a berserker by trade, which I think if anything that scene was so cool in the sense that like it showcases the fact that these people understand the fact that a normal human can't kill like that. When it comes to the conceptions of what it means to be a normal human who walks around and talks to other humans, like we don't do that to each other. But if we grab wolf pelts and we chant together and, in the middle of the night and we summon the wolf spirits of Fenrir to be able to get inside of us, to rip our human flesh away and, and like it says in their song, it's like, until we come back into the flesh of men, like this is just what we're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's so psychologically interesting in the sense that they just understood the fact that there has to be some level of divorce between the barbarity that I'm about to commit and myself. Like I can't eat all this. Like I honestly, like even as the hard ass that they all genuinely are, every single one of them genuinely the most, badass motherfuckers of their time, even they themselves mentally can't, bear the weight of everything that has to be done, and that they will do.
Yeah, wildly similar to quick callback to another episode, Silence of the Lambs, but swapped. Like it puts the lotion in the basket.
Right.
Like he insists on calling his victims it so that he doesn't have to, make any ties with the fact that they're actual people.
Right, exactly. Yeah, there has to be someone has to divorce, either you as the master make someone divorce themselves of their humanity, or you have to divorce yourself in order to be able to then, go off and just commit action as dictated by a master, because they were a war band led by that war maiden who was yelling around like, I need strong ones, only strong ones, so yeah, I thought, cutting the movie into pieces now in terms of like the highlights of what I thought were the best, that like from the very beginning I thought that was really, really cool, just because that there's so much historical context there, because you can intersplice that idea into so many other cultures, like even like from a biblical sense, right? Like how they like how in the Bible it says that after Jericho fell and they had to go in there and kill all the women and all the children and everybody in there, like the men that did that had to stay outside of the village for like X amount of days, as that essentially as the bloodlust like went away, like there was an understanding even from the position of like, no, God's telling you can't come back. You know what I mean? Like you're you're not of the people right now, like you've you've depersonalized and, brought everybody's body to like objective facticity, like, like you understand that people are just meat and like we can't have that,
Yeah, go sleep
Very
it
cool.
off. Yeah.
Yeah, go sweat it off. Yeah.
Well, so we don't want to see you for a few days after what you did.
Yeah, people are gonna ask questions and
Everybody needs time to like block out the war memories.
Yeah, interestingly, it took me personally quite a bit, like even after that scene, which I did think was pretty cool and a good way to start. The whole the whole beginning really with Ethan Hawke and the essentially the prologue, it didn't really grab me.
Mm-hmm.
But then probably shortly after we see Amleth as an adult berserker putting in work at this town, which, by the way, one of the coolest long shots I've ever seen. That camera went from left to right for about 4.5 minutes of like brutal slaughter.
Oh yeah.
And it was beautiful to watch. That's probably when I started to get pretty invested. And by the end, I had the full face grin going on.
For sure.
All right, go outside for a few days.
I agree, and I will say that a second viewing actually makes the beginning more interesting, which is, I feel a credit to the movie, because I always try to figure out what will make a second viewing be worth it, you know what I mean? Because there's so many other movies I've never seen, like, why would I watch this one twice, when...
That's what we ask ourselves every other week.
Yeah. But in this way, I mean, like, the movie does make a lot more, makes the prologue far more interesting and juicy, because once you understand the full scope of the story and the intentions of the queen and like all of that stuff, then you start watching the characters far, far closer and be like, oh no. And like how Hamir the jester is like making fun of the fact that he's like, oh, look how the queen's cup gets wet for another man's, cup before her own king's.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I thought about that during that, that dialogue at the end, not to skip ahead, and I thought about when her son Amleth first runs to her room to let her know that the king is back, and before even like registering what he's saying, she's like don't ever come into my quarters unannounced. Yeah.
I'm so glad you're gonna be dead in an hour.
Yeah, literally, as soon as that dialogue happened, I was like, oh yeah.
I will say though that watching the movie the second time, it makes me realize the fact that the whole aspect of her begging Fjolnir to like kill her husband and stuff like that isn't so much a long shot plan as much as it is just like a convenient aspect of the fact that he just showed her the wound, and it's because of that then they take the opportunity to be able to do it, because the first time I watched the movie, I was sitting there in the theater and I was watching the scene where she was explaining to Amleth like what happened, and I was like, this bitch, like she like had that plan the whole time, but then rewatching the beginning right now, watching the facial expressions, watching the fact that everyone's literally coming back from this raid or war or whatever, right? Like though Fjolnir wasn't around to plan with her in any sort of way. Like it really was a situation where like this is our moment to strike. Like he's super seriously wounded. Like and even in the sense that like I can only imagine that again, nobody's the villain in their own story, right? So because of that, I would imagine that when she told the king, you will die in honor, by the sword, she's essentially promising that to him, in the sense that, in this way we'll all prosper, because it's like, you're already too weak to be king. You're telling me this yourself because you're already trying to make our too young of a son to try to be the king. So you're aware of that. And you're telling me here that you don't want to die of sickness. You don't want to die old. So, I mean,
let's help each other out.
Nudge, nudge. Yeah. I got you, king.
I got you. Yeah. Oh, hey, yeah. A queen is here always to please her king.
That's
and
great.
hey, and to be perfectly honest, when we're looking at Ethan Hawke, King Ethan Hawke's face as he's taking all those arrows and like those spears, he looks pretty fucking happy. It like he looks very, very glad that this is the way that it's going to be. It's like, fuck yes. It's like I get to do a cool speech, and then he gets, and then I curse him essentially. It's like, watch as everything you have turns to fucking ash because no one's gonna take a bastard seriously. Like it's like no one is going to want to do that.
I think he might have known it was going to happen too, because like conveniently the night before he pledges his son to avenge him if he's killed, or when he's killed rather.
Oh yeah, during that ceremony in the hole with Willem Dafoe.
Because I know he had like a major gut wound, but he also seemed pretty cold with his wife. Like I get the impression that he knew what was going on.
That's interesting. Yeah,
Do
so I wonder.
Do you think he knew that they were trying to sabotage him?
I don't know. I think that he was cold with his wife
Mm-hmm.
when she was like, throwing out the welcome mat for him, basically, because I noticed that early in the movie, and I think it's convenient. That's all I'll say. I think it's convenient that he pledges his son to avenge his death right before he gets murdered
Right.
by his half brother.
So do you think? So now I'm wondering, because Amleth sort of repeats this mantra of like, I'm sort of fated in this way to kill Fjolnir, and
yeah, he can't see any other way outside.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's Willem Dafoe's witch work too.
Right. So
I mean, yeah, they tripped that child out.
Yeah.
It's like, listen, you're going to be fucking cursed if you don't avenge me.
This is your purpose, little pup.
Mhm.
Yeah. So because it seems to be the case, right, that Odin is literally has his fingers in this pie and is manipulating things. I mean, clearly in the scene where the ravens take the rope or pinch the rope down. But
see, Matt, therein lies another big aspect of the movie that I really want us to hammer down so we can have a symmetrical conversation about it, right? Like, how much of the magic in the movie is really just the phenomenology of the people experiencing that reality, right? Because if you believe in earth gods, if you believe in Odin, if you believe in fate, you believe in the Norns that thread that fate, all of that stuff will make it so coincidences, you know what I mean? Other people's acts and everything like that will appear like supernatural work. Because sure, from our perspective, it can look like ravens pecked away at his rope and he got cut down and that's what happened, right? But I mean, Olga's the one that saved him, right? At the end of the day, we know that she's the one that actually factually took him away and rode him away while he was, bleeding profusely. So it's like, how much of that is just his rationalizing it in that way? You know what I mean? And how much of that is genuine magic? Because I don't want to, I don't want to just, bring it all, cement it all down into the black and white. Because I do believe that the movie does dip its toe in both ways, And again, if you believe in the magic, what fucking stops it from being real? It's like, if you are steeped in it every single day and nobody is giving you a skeptical thought about the magical aspect of things, some people can be like, no, it's not possible, because they think it's another magical thing that's happening, you know what I mean? Or because they think that they have a ward against these dark magics. It isn't because they don't believe that dark magics don't exist,
Yeah, I mean, it raises an interesting question, is when the magic happens in this movie, whose perspective are we seeing it from, and is it always the same person?
Right. Because, I mean, what were the instances of magic in the movie?
The Raven was a big, recurring one. The sailboat, though, at the end is up for consideration.
The sailboat?
Yeah, the Olga, calling the winds, basically, to push the boat forward.
Gotcha. Yeah, for sure.
I don't know. He did, kill a Draugr by putting it in the moonlight. There's definitely some very
did he, though? Because
fantastical
remember, then
things.
he turns around and he looks at himself, and it's just him staring at the corpse, and then he grabs the sword. So it's it's a potential genuine illusion that he's running through his head of being like, am I strong enough to pick up the sword? And then,
Yeah, because I think it sends a message, too, that the magic that happens in this movie is conveniently peppered in with a ton of superstition that doesn't do anything.
Yeah, for sure. I love it. When I first told Kimmy that Kimmy is the one that told me she wanted to watch this movie. I had never even heard of it before. And I told her before we even walked in that I would really love this movie as long as they actually bothered to use magic in it. Because I always think it's very boring when a movie that exists in a time period when people believed in magic doesn't use it. Because again, to me, magic is just about the belief system of the person who's receiving it and who's casting it at the same time, because you could potentially, bring it all, bring it all down to science in some type of way, but that's only if you know what you're talking about. If you know exactly what that is behind it. Otherwise, what else can you call it? It's like that old adage, like any advanced technology will just appear like science. I mean, like magic.
Indistinguishable.
Yeah, it's indistinguishable from magic.
Okay. Was it me or did we see Odin for a brief second?
Yeah, I mean, we do see Odin in the barn.
That's him?
Yeah,
that's supposed to be Odin.
That is supposed to be Odin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just making sure.
Who's like the white-haired witch or god on the horse?
The Valkyrie.
Is that a Valkyrie?
Yeah, those are the Valkyries that are supposed to take you to Valhalla.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay.
Right.
Yep.
Oh. There's one other question I had. Oh, the crazy witch without eyes. What was her story?
What
I
was
think
her
she
story?
was like the other witches, honestly. Because like
Yeah.
the throat singer in the cave, they're just like kind of these in-between beings.
I would imagine, and that in this reality, fate is a very, very set down thing. So that's probably like the wise woman of that village who probably already knew that this was going to happen.
Yeah, she knew his name.
So if we take it into consideration that there genuinely is a thread of fate that people who are wise enough to be able to read it can, then she would know I have to hide because I have to be able to hide in X place, which will work. And in order for me to be able to come out at night and be able to speak to this guy, because it is important, because I know that that the monarchy that is going to come out of his blood will have my blood in it too, which is what she said. Because when he asked her, why do you care about my fate, witch? And he's like, because the Maiden King that will come from you, will be, of here. So
yeah,
that's Matt going upstairs.
Or maybe, I mean, just to lean back into the other possibility as well, he saw her by himself.
That's
and
true.
She gave him a very, basically a prophecy that works out very well for him.
Yeah, but I mean, the one thing that she had going on is the fact that she said his name, right? Like
yeah, but he knows his own name. Like
she called him. Yeah. Oh, you're saying that she's an apparition altogether?
I'm saying it's just something to talk about.
Okay.
I'm not saying it's the case
Okay.
because also like the other witch too, the guy in the cave, he saw by himself and he wasn't really given like much for new information, Excepting that Willem Dafoe's character was killed after he left and that his like tongue and eyes were removed, which
and
wasn't confirmed anywhere else.
and
It
his
might
ears.
not be true. Yeah, and his ears, but there was like reference to removing eyes and tongues from those people in this movie.
Right.
So it's very likely.
Yeah, and I mean at the same time, it's like, what are the odds that a fox is going to be the thing that leads you to the cave of this he witch? Because
I'm speaking strictly to the like, what if it's all in his mind?
And that's what I'm saying,
yeah.
and that's what I'm agreeing with you in the sense that like how like it's this little fox, who's always leading him to the cave of the he witch or leading him to the temple of the Draugr or helping him when he has to do those sweet growls. I mean those howls at the moon in order to be able to make Rocky and like the other dogs like go insane. I like to believe that all that's true. I think that it over muddies the water in the movie to try to
Walk the line.
walk the line or try to bring it over to like, our modern magic is dead kind of like perspective. You know what I mean? Because
Well,
we've
and
hunted the forest and we've killed every imp and every fairy at this point.
Thank God.
I really do like, though, that, assuming the magic that happens, that we see happen from our perspective in this movie being like a true thing, I really like that they mix in other gods, other superstitions and stuff like that, because it like kind of creates this narrative that's like, it all comes from like a kernel of truth. Something happens somewhere, and then all this other, conspiracy is born of those events.
For sure. I also like the fact that there's just a intermingling of outer forces in that way too, right? Because it's like, okay, if the Nordic gods are real, then the Christian gods can be real too, right?
Mhm.
So it's like, and the Christian gods, and then the Slavic earth gods, like all of those things are just continuously vying at each other, for some sort of like, because at the same time you could imagine that, like, if the Christian God is real, right, and he's speaking to all the Christians and be like, okay, hey, listen, like, you're not gonna have to bloody your hands, but understand that there is an angel of, there is an angel with the sword of justice out there, you know what I mean, working in order to be able to free you guys.
Mm.
And that does happen at the end. I mean, like, the Christians are at the end freed from the chieftain because everybody else is dead.
Yeah, who's gonna keep you there?
Mm-hmm. And at the same time, the Nordic gods are appeased because the bastard who killed, the bastard kinslayer has been taken care of,
Mm.
and his line has ended in that way. So it's like, from the perspective of just like fantastical aspects, everybody gets satisfied, because I mean, Amleth dies with a smile on his face, like, regardless of whether one wants to believe that what he's having are genuine visions or just his subjective desires, manifested. I mean, either way, he dies happy.
I mean, either way, I think I would too. Like, if this is what your whole life has been about, is avenging your family
Mm-hmm.
and going full circle on this narrative that was started for you, basically, it would probably be the first time this guy was able to relax
For
in his
sure.
entire life.
I would imagine also that he's quite happy about the fact that he doesn't have to make any more choices.
Mm.
Because he told his mom that after tomorrow, once he's done with his vengeance plan, he's going to have to figure out if living is in fact to his liking.
That's true.
And now he's been put in a position where that no longer has to be the case. He just completes his mission and off to Valhalla. And it's like, when in reality, the hard part would have been being alive the entire time. Like,
Especially with all the pressure that was placed on him just from, cultural and familial values of dying in battlefield. Like, they called, what did he say, like, shameful graybeards? Like, it's basically an embarrassment to grow old without
Mhm.
dying on the battlefield
Yeah.
as a man.
yeah, or at least continuously operating within the battlefield. Because I would imagine, like, the He Witches, they're all super old, but they're all out there always, and they're actively helping the campaign in some way, like.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I would imagine that, like, yeah, the aspect of being a shameful graybeard comes from, like, being like a farmer. You know what I mean? Like, you're forever, in the way back when it comes to doing anything of, like,
Doing
martial action.
women's work in the fields.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean,
Careful.
relative to their values, exactly.
Right.
Mhm.
No, and there's also like you were saying, Hannah, there's something to be said about
It's slave work that's referenced in the movie, not
Yeah.
women's
Yeah.
work.
yeah, there's something to be said about the glorification of valor, because life used to be so much harsher.
Yeah.
And it's never not been the case that to give your life for the greater good is something of, to be virtued,
Mm-hmm.
So that's very true.
Yeah, but at the same time, I mean, this movie holds it would, just to keep it to fictional civilizations, let's say. You know what I mean? I don't want to muddy our water by being like, oh, like, we're trying to talk in historical context, like,
No.
from cinematographical aspects, right? I parallel this movie to, like, 300, right, wherein there is
Mhm.
another martial civilization like the Spartans, right, where they also hold valor to be the zenith, essentially, of what a man can possibly do. But what I'm trying to get at is just the fact that I dislike the fact that it comes to be like a responsibility, like something that you have to do, as opposed to something born out of you. Like,
Well-
you are an individual of valor. Like, no, like, come back on your shield, like, come back with your shield or on it. Like,
Mhm.
we won't accept you back if you're half stepping out there. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like,
Mm.
Yeah, about your 300 mark, I just want to say, how cool was it that everybody in this movie was Gerard Butler from 300? I got like serious man goosebumps, like from all that guttural screaming going on. Very cool.
Man goosebumps as opposed to women goosebumps.
I was gonna say like
Different.
I was thinking of like nerd boner, what the closest analogy to that was, you know, for like big sweaty rip dudes tearing each other apart.
At the like a testosterone riptide, essentially.
Yeah, a rage boner.
I think that's a different thing.
Yeah, I think you're
That's
right.
what the characters have.
Yeah, what they're having is a murder boner.
Yeah, they all have murder
Yeah,
boners.
just murder
Vengeance.
boners to like the fucking moon. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it does definitely, just kind of tracking back a little bit, behoove cultures to, make it this motivated thing, though. Like, it's honorable to die protecting, what we've set up here. And you see it a lot in the real world, in history, and today.
Yeah, it's
And who's to say what the greater good is? Everybody's greater good is them winning the war at
Right,
the end
exactly.
of the day.
Yep. I mean, like the greater good is the people you know. Like
Mhm.
that's like there is no greater good than that.
The medium size good.
Hmm.
I was just I've been sitting on this for a while because I wanted to wait until we got into a little bit more of the movie before I brought this up. There was and I like the ending of this movie. It's predictable, but it's supposed to be because there's a fate that's like laid out for us up front.
Hmm.
But there was the part of the movie after he discovered everything with his mother and he got away essentially with Olga and they were going to run away together, you know? And there was a very strong part of me that hoped that that was how the movie ended because they had just unveiled this huge reality where it's like, this movie doesn't have a bad guy. Everybody's a victim in
Right.
this movie. And part of me, after just finding out the rest of the story, is just that, like, the main character was like a super victim who didn't know what was going on and just got punished for existing, basically. But everybody was behaving based on, like, their needs. And part of me wanted him to just take off and leave it.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, at this point in time of our life, right? I mean, it's been 15 years, 20 years, you know? It's like, aside from him, the wounds of what happened has essentially just, been cauterized and, festered over by everybody else. Like, he's
Yeah.
the only one still carrying the situation. Because in my mind, this is another thing that a second viewing was paramount to me. It was the scene when after Fjolnir kills the dad and Amleth is actively running away in the town. I wanted to hear the queen's screams again because I wanted to see if what she said was true. And again, just like in the first time I watched this movie, the screams that you hear as Amleth, you know what I mean? Because you're in Amleth's perspective. They do sound like screams of anguish. Like, it sounds like Nicole Kidman's character was not having a good time at that very moment. And also the fact that the men were jeering about the fact that, look, King Fjolnir has found himself a queen, you know? I can imagine, right, that it's either two things. It's either the fact that they themselves have conspired to create this facade wherein he is taking her by quote unquote force in order to be able to diffuse any kind of suspicion about the fact that she had something to do with the king's murder.
Oh, for the loyal people.
Yep. Or it is a matter of Stockholm syndrome born out of 20 years of being with this particular man, right? Because let's say that what she's talking about wasn't true. Let's just say for the sake of it all, because we don't get to see a scene where she actually does what she says she does, right? Like, let's just say for the sake of it all that after 20 years of hanging out with Fjolnir and coming to find out that, hey, this guy's actually kind of sweet.
She's been like Stockholmed into.
Exactly. She's been Stockholmed into believing that in all reality, like, oh, this is exactly what we all wanted. Like, that guy, he was a fucking asshole because, he did in fact rape her. Like that part I do believe. Like, she was a slave who then was raped. And because of the fact that she was the first one to bear him a son, she got ascended into, the queenliness of that fiefdom or whatever, right? Totally believe that, and I can also believe in the fact that believe in her capacity to be able to dispense of men like that. Where she's like, okay, well, that powerful man dead. You new powerful man. I will, do whatever I can to be able to make sure that I stay safe next to you.
I mean, I could dispense of a man who raped me, I think.
For sure. No, but I mean, like, you also, I think about when, like, in that scene when Amaleth puts the sword to her shoulder, right? And she, like, right away, like, does that sexual gesture being like, oh, your sword is very long. Like, she didn't know that was her son or anything like that. She was just actively trying to diffuse the situation to whoever it was that put that to her.
If something saves your life a couple of times.
And that's what I'm saying, is the fact that at this point she's artful on this, right? So it's like, so I can only imagine that I can infer, which I think is the best thing about any movie, is their ability to be able to create a colorful enough world that I can infer the ends and the beginnings that I didn't get to see and the ends that I didn't get to show me, with the information that they gave me in the middle. Which is that, like, she could have been one of those, like, a slave that actively tried to get, in with the prince or king's favor. Again, from her position, she's always raped, like, she's always thrust. Like, the king always thrusts himself upon her. But it could also be the case that she, like, seeks to have it be, again, from just the position of safety, right? Like, if you become part of the harem that the prince likes, that just elevates you in whatever manner you possibly can, So I would imagine that what we're seeing here is either a very, very victimized woman, like Hannah said, everybody in this movie a victim in some fashion, but sleuthy and cunning, which is probably where Amaleth gets it, at the end of the day. Like,
yeah, a couple of things. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, just the last thing I was going to say is that, because that would make perfect sense in the sense that his strength comes, like, his brutish strength comes from his father, and then, like, the high level of cunning that he has comes from his mother.
Yeah, things just picked up out of context. I think that I don't think she was raped by Fulnir. I think, and the only reason I think that is because she treats her children by him with love. And she has always treated our main character poorly. And we just get, like, a snippet of that. But I think that could potentially be, like, this child was born because I was raped, and then you don't want to see them anymore, and it just brings back a lot of pain for you. Because she's very coddling of the other children.
Right.
Which that's something that, I don't know, I thought was
and only one of them is hers, though. The other one Fjolnir already had.
Yeah, but she was super coddling of the young one.
Right.
Fair point.
Mm-hmm.
Other thing that I was wondering about, because it was just kind of hitting me that I was like, everybody here, I think, is a victim. So I was thinking about, is it Fulnir or Fjolnir? Fjolnir.
Yeah, it goes up first.
I think I said that wrong earlier. Oh, well. I was thinking
we'll
about
cut it in
his... Thank you.
Cut that.
I was thinking about his situation and how he might be a victim in his, like, own particular situation. And then I was thinking, like, first of all, sucks to be born a bastard in a royal family at any time like this. 100%. Second of all, it's not unlikely that he's the firstborn.
Yeah.
Because he is a bastard, So he might, based on the way that he's feeling, be feeling robbed of something that was already supposed to be his.
Genuine Lion King situation here, then.
I'm telling, like, the firefight at the end, like, I literally, like, 8 times throughout watching this movie, I was like, oh, it's like Lion King. And the first time we saw Anya Taylor-Joy's character, I was like, it's Nala.
They're doing Lion King.
And then they had sex in the woods. Like, can you feel love tonight?
Yeah, I was wondering about that when you said that right at the beginning of the podcast. How much is... Okay, because the Lion King is definitely Hamlet, right?
Yeah.
And so Hamlet must
Lions.
be... Sorry, with lions.
It's Lion Hamlet.
And a meerkat. Anyway. But yeah, so Hamlet is... So this movie is derived from something. I forget. I didn't... But it's based on a story, right?
Hamlet. I'm just kidding.
Well, that's not what it said. I don't remember what it was called. Let me try to find it here while I... think
is
about
Shakespeare
this.
a hack?
I'm just wondering, like, where does Hamlet come from? If this movie is older, if this story is older than Hamlet, and this is sort of like does this go back to the Greeks? Like
What?
the story of Hamlet in its like general sense?
A lot of like
I
that
mean, just-
period.
I mean, a man being angry at the death of his father. Yeah, I'm sure
Yeah.
that's
Well, but the
I'm
father's a
sure-
Tale as
king.
old as
Yeah,
time.
honestly.
And then there's the evil uncle. Like the notes are always the same, so I'm wondering. Oh, it's based on the legend of Amleth, which Amleth is a figure in a medieval Scandinavian legend.
Hamlet sounds a lot
The
like
direct
Hamlet.
inspiration of the character of Prince Hamlet.
Oh, so this is
the
the Hamlet. Okay.
No, Hamlet is the Amleth, if I'm hearing you correctly.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
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 Damn it. Now I'm confused.
It's just I want to say Hamlet. Like Hamlet's the original. No.
Yeah, tons of stories, even from, especially from, I would say, Shakespeare's time, are actually already derivatives of, really old tales.
Yeah. I mean, Fast and the Furious would probably have happened. We'd be on Fast and the Furious 700 if they had cars. You know what I mean? 300 years ago. They would have been telling that story a million years ago.
And then they'd never stop.
Yeah, because it's always about family, all right? It's always about family, all right?
Super
And-
curious. If there's gonna be a Fast and Furious that is Hamlet, they just hide it in there.
Oh, I bet they will. I bet they will.
Yeah, Fast 12 is basically Hamlet.
Mhm.
Amleth.
Hamlet. It even sounds like Hamlet. I bet that's a play on the word Amleth.
Yeah, probably.
Jose and I just
It's the
talked.
same letters, isn't it?
We already said this and nodded at each other.
Yeah,
and you weren't
literally.
listening.
All he did was put the H in front.
Oh,
Shakespeare's a hack. You heard it here
Genius.
first.
genius.
They did not hear it here first. There's no way. You heard it here first.
Yeah.
I'm the only person who thinks that Shakespeare
sucks. All right. All he did was put the H in front of Amleth, and then he called it Hamlet.
This is mine.
Yeah.
I made this.
Yeah, exactly. The uncle, well, everyone's got an uncle, right? I mean,
They're usually bastards.
A shady uncle that killed your dad.
yeah, honestly, it tracks.
It'd be funny if in the original Amleth, the uncle was actually a good guy, but Shakespeare's uncle was a piece of shit. He's like, no, I'm rewriting
No,
this
yeah.
motherfucker.
You gotta write what you feel.
Well, that's been fascinating. What a trip down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, honestly, I'm really glad that you brought that up because I was wondering, like, how deeply those two connections went and what came first, Because, obviously, like we're saying, like, these kinds of stories, I mean, any kind of culture can tell you that story,
Yep.
Anybody can tell you that story.
Even the war, though, it's just and I took a Shakespeare class in college, but I'm way more familiar with The Lion King, so that's where all my comparisons are coming from. And it's even just the fact that when he hears that his uncle was like pushed out basically by another king and he moved the people out, in my head it's yeah, the hyenas have taken over the Pride Lands.
Man, I did not catch that this was Hamlet.
No?
No.
What?
There's a brief moment where
This is more Hamlet than Hamlet is.
yeah, there's a little bit of an Oedipal twinge at one point, but I was like, no, that's not, the rest of the story isn't even close to Oedipus. So
Just
I don't
because his mom tried to seduce him? Is
yeah,
that
before
why?
she stabbed him, yeah. Which is just weird. Also,
Survival.
we've been I don't know why this came to my mind, but we've been watching The Boys recently, which is a great show, hyper violent.
Oh, yeah, I've seen it.
Seeing Amleth shove his sword through Sir Smells-a-Lot's face
Mm-hmm.
grossed me out probably more than Kamiko tearing the Russian's face off. So brutal. I don't know why.
Well,
It came off so brutal.
that just seems
to me.
seems more realistically visceral, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
I mean, the ability to be able to thrust your sword through someone's nose seems far more likely for you to be able to do, let's say, than rip someone's face, off of it.
Sure.
That's fantastical. You know what I mean? You putting,
Yeah.
you putting your sword through someone's nose is just barbaric.
It gave me like Saving Private Ryan vibes from like the shh and the slow stab.
Yeah.
And
I
I think that's why it made me like shiver a little bit, is because I like have a media tie to like a war situation with it.
When I was sitting down in the movie theater watching this movie for the first time, when the Bjork Witch came out, and
Oh, that was Bjork. That's right.
yeah,
Yeah.
when the Bjork Witch came out and like she started talking to Amleth, I was already thinking the Lion King in that way, and I was like, oh, this is the part where they tell him to remember who you are.
Yeah, and Willem Dafoe is Rafiki.
You were hearing Edward James Olmos in your head.
No, not Edward James Olmos. It's what's his name? Fucking Darth Vader.
Lawrence. Oh God.
No, that's Edward James Olmos, isn't it?
No.
You're intermixing two names there.
We all know who we're talking about. The Sandlot. The Sandlot
stand
guy.
by. James Earl Jones
Yes.
is the
right.
name of the guy. All right.
Thank you all for
Yeah.
waiting while we all furiously Google it.
What you're talking about is Admiral Adama.
Edward James Olmos
Yeah.
is Admiral Adama.
I was like, it was you saying almost at the end. I'm like, no, like the face in my mind like remixed, like like
Like Face Off, but it's Edward
I'm
James
like, no.
Olmos and James Earl Jones.
yeah, like the name was like like the face was morphing in my head as you were saying the name until you said almost, and then it just that's not the right one.
My bad.
No,
Yes,
but-
Darth Vader.
Man, I really, really wish that Willem Dafoe's character had lasted longer in the movie.
He's so good.
God damn it.
Good. These Eggers has got this really cool film habit, I guess you would say,
Mhm.
of doing these front on shots of the face in super interesting lighting that and he mixes it with these like punchy reverberating dialogues that they were doing like at the beginning with that ceremony in the hole, and it's so powerful. There's something so extremely pleasing about it and moving. And yeah, I agree 100%. Willem Dafoe should be in every movie, as far as I'm concerned. Hannah, you'd be pleased to know that Kevin M. from Colombia really enjoys your artwork for our stream.
Oh, good.
He says it looks like you captured Jose expressing his points.
I am
He's
literally
fighting his
gesticulating like that at all times.
That is what he looks like in real life.
Jose gave me a lot of direction on
Oh, I
how
had a
to
vision.
draw him
I
doing
had
that.
a vision as I was driving one day, and I had to like.
Like Paul on the road. Very
Yep.
nice.
Essentially, unfortunately, I could text, so I didn't have to leave it all to myself and then go into my cave and make it colorful, make it more make it more colorful later.
Yeah. I did want to say one thing though too on because you as I walked out of the room super briefly, but I think I heard you say that you wished Willem Dafoe's character had been in this movie for longer.
Yes, Hymir. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I was just thinking about this while we were watching the movie. There's something really special about Willem Dafoe, and I think what it is we've seen him in so much, and he's so the same in all of it, that he's the only actor that I have like this weird idea in my head of Willem Dafoe just like being reincarnated through multiple phases of history and just exists as these people.
That's some cool headcanon. I can get behind that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that he acts the same in any way. I think that like he's got this natural level of like unhingedness to it.
He's
to him,
iconic.
right? And then he brings that natural like essence of unhingedness to like every character like that had like with their own, like their own set of like characteristics and stuff like that. Because he isn't the same kind of madman here like he is in The Lighthouse, like
Or like the same villain as like Spider-Man, or what was that Wes Anderson movie? He played a villain.
With the cat.
Grand Budapest?
Grand Budapest, yeah.
Yeah, all very different.
Yeah.
All very different versions of Unhinged.
Yeah, exactly. He's got a barometer that he knows exactly how to be able to run that, you know what I mean, in the direction that it needs to be. But like he plays that shit perfectly,
Have you played 12 Minutes?
No.
It's like a story-based Groundhog's Day themed video game that came out recently, and Willem Dafoe voices the main character, one of the main characters, not the protagonist, but one of the main characters. And even though you can't see him, it's so Willem Dafoe to the core. And because I always thought like a big part of it was his face, because he's such a unique looking guy, but it's both his face and it's his voice. He's immediately recognizable everywhere he is all the time as soon as you hear him talk.
Yeah, there's something very piercing about him, because I watched American Psycho like 2 weeks ago.
Oh, for the first time?
No, not for the first time.
Oh, okay.
I was showing Amante American Psycho. He hadn't seen it.
Oh, his first time.
Mm-hmm. And I almost forgot that Willem Dafoe was in that movie. You know, like his role is so subtle, but like, and it never goes anywhere. You know, but at the same time, every single time that he's on scene, I'm like, fuck. Like, even though I already know that it's not gonna go anywhere, like the amount of gravity that his like questions have, and like the naturalness of how, like, even when he's being affable and you think that he's just doing something casual, it's entirely from a point of trying to dissect something out of you. You know, like he's like every single time that something is occurring, it's in order to be able to figure out how you're going to react about it in order for him to be able to read you better.
Yeah, there's just like a certain level of intensity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, I felt the same way. Like after that whole thing and then the kid left by himself, I was like, oh, we're not going to get as much Willem Dafoe as I feel that I signed up for.
Yeah, seriously. Plus, he had my favorite line in the whole movie, which I looked it up right now. We're in the middle of their trip, which goes, "Wise in measure each man should be, yet wise enough to be the fool."
Wise enough to be the fool.
I love that. Yeah. I didn't even catch that. I like that a lot.
Is that reiterated in Hamlet somewhere?
I don't know. Shakespeare with his fucking plagiarizing ass. I'm sure he took the whole thing.
You wouldn't just leave that on the
table.
You
wouldn't leave that on the table.
Right.
It's like 300 years old, right? I mean, we should revive it. I'm doing history a solid here by making sure this great sentence doesn't die.
Yeah, I'm going to make the uncle an asshole,
Yeah.
and then I'm going to keep this sentence for sure.
I also thought it was really interesting when they talked about, you know, because I have like the script situation here, and they're talking about how they're like, how did Odin lose his eye? And it's like, it's because he tried to seek the secret of women, you know, and it's like, you should never do that. Like, you should never try to seek the secrets of women, but you should always try to heed them, you know, which is essentially what he does throughout the whole movie, because he doesn't really question Olga, you know, when she's like providing him, like help or any type of way.
Earth magic.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Even though, I mean, we definitely see, not to like pull us all the way back to the magic thing.
Yeah.
But I was like questioning, because there's obviously like callbacks to magic in this movie that you know, don't result in anything. Like, you know, beheading the horse, a lot of like ritualistic type things when people in your family die and stuff like that. And
Wait, you're saying that chopping the horse's head off doesn't help? Because it does.
Who am I to say?
Let me just
Really?
hold on. Again, from the ontology and phenomenology of an individual who believes in magic, right? You steep yourself in that moment, right? They cut off the horse's head. They gave that lady, you know what I mean, some meat, and then stabbed her in the stomach, and then laid her out with your dead son. You know what the horse's head did for you, you know, after your wife splattered it all over you and your little boy, all right, is the fact that it essentially punctuated your grieving hour. That's what it did. I mean, that is the magic indeed, right? Is I will not fall into depression. This is literally as far as my sadness goes. I am validated in my sadness. I am sad for my son. That shit was sad. But from now on, we have to go fucking do something about this, you know? And it's like, and if there's anything, I mean, shit, honestly, what's more magical than being able to break out of depression, you know? And especially in such a powerful, like from like one moment to the next kind of way, you know? Because you're looking at a man whose tiny fiefdom has been cut down like by half, you know what I mean? Or like 60% at this point. At least your familial dynasty has been cut by half, you know what I mean? But at this point, so it's like you have every reason to essentially crumble.
for any
the
of
horse's
our...
blood, keeps your ass from doing that. Because again, this is a situation that your father did, your father's father did. These are the coping mechanisms that we use in order to be able to get past, these situations. And the viscerality of it, I would imagine, probably punctuates it that much harder, because we can all sit here, right, and talk about how your kid died, right, and how sad that is, and how maybe you should go out there and, hey, even if I'm trying to psych you up to try to go find their killer, you know what I mean? Like, there's still, it still isn't the same as being like, no, we're going to end this horse's life. Take the vitality of their blood, splatter all over us, because we will use this quote unquote energy to be able to then fuel ourselves onward to be able to do X thing. Especially because back in the day, everything had to be pageantry, right? Everybody was looking at you. Are you honoring the gods appropriately? Because if you're not, then this is why this shit's happening to us, man. Like, your fucking, flippancy toward everything is exactly why these crops are going, just from a general perspective, why these crops are going bad, why, this plague is happening, why these people are murdering us. Like, it's your fault. The gods are finally answering. Like they were willing to let you off for a little while, and now they're like, nah, fuck this guy. So it's like,
so you're saying if I'm depressed, I should kill a horse?
I was just gonna say,
if you do so in a sacrificial way that's ritualistic, that has other people, actively around it, that can, and that you genuinely at the end of it actually come out purged and better for it. You know what I mean? Then shit, maybe, dude.
Maybe.
I mean,
no, wait.
I'm gonna leave it on the table for now.
The LIC podcast is not recommending that any of our users that might be struggling with depression do any of that.
Well, hold on, though. He laid out some good arguments.
Please don't kill horses.
What is more magical than being able to cure depression?
Look, if you're depressed and you need some glue, there are things you can do.
This is anecdotal. There is no proof that it cures depression.
Right. I mean, it's a movie. I mean, we all just watched the movie.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, relative to the realities of the movie, right? I can see the psychology behind one would go about doing that. Especially because, like, another reason why they kill the horse is because they believe that they need, much like the Egyptians back in the day, they believe that they need that in order to be able to continue onward, like,
Maybe it's not even that, though. Maybe it's like maybe they kill their horse. Because we know at least the first son rode a horse around a lot. Maybe it's like his horse goes down with him. It's like a solidarity thing.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Yeah, because they kill the lady who I would imagine is probably his like favorite girl or whatever. You know what I mean?
His girlfriend.
Yeah.
She's like, no.
It's like shit.
Oh, I was interested
More
in the
solidarity.
wrong guy.
But those are the risks one takes, right? When trying to find security in some way, right? Because you'd imagine from that girl's perspective, oh, the prince to be likes me. You know what I mean? There's I should try to, like, I am not a slave, you know what I mean? I'm a working girl, but I mean, like, with the conceptions of this reality, if I bear him a son, I might be able to get ascended, you know what I mean, too.
Very beneficial.
Mm-hmm. But the risk is the fact that if he dies, they will put your ass on that longboat alongside him.
All of his possessions go with him to the afterworld.
Yep, exactly.
All of his possessions.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You are property.
Yep.
Sorry.
He was like, don't kill that one. I would like to keep that.
It's either killing horses cures depression or horse's blood makes you go faster.
It's not.
I'm very confused.
Please don't.
It's definitely one of those.
I don't think
things.
the horse's blood makes anyone go faster. I don't think anybody in the movie made that claim.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Have you ever tried rubbing an engine with cheetah blood?
No.
I feel like we have a lot to take care of in the edits.
In the edits. Yeah, all the edits that we do.
Yeah, right. You'll get
I
right
thought
on
Jose
that.
works on this for hours after we leave.
I did once.
Yeah.
You can go back to the original 10 episodes of the Lethal Introspection Crew if you really want my edited work there.
Yeah, and terrible audio. Have fun.
Yeah. Yeah, be sure to listen to it on a computer because they will not work on a phone.
We think it's best that our listeners get the most raw version of us, and also that we don't have to do any extra work.
Yeah, nobody likes
the best
extra
of both
work.
worlds.
It's terrible. But watching this movie was not extra work.
No,
Because
this
holy
movie had a whole
smokes.
bunch of really cool one-liners. I feel like I really liked the one where when like the little kid is asking his dad, he's like, "Why are we doing this? Like this is slave work, you know?" And dad's like no man knows whether they'll reach next Yuletide a king or a slave, so it's best to prepare for both. You know, I was like,
Yeah.
"Fuck yeah, that is a good saying." You know.
A lot of little wisdom nuggets. I'm betting that a lot of that comes from the original story because they all sound like these timeless euphemisms that same that
Just
from
the
the
truthism
Bible.
that you just pop.
Truthism, yeah.
He had a couple of those too, because he followed that up with something along the lines of like it's important to show slaves that you're capable of doing the work that they do.
Yeah.
And it's like it was some of the lines like that I was reflecting on as we move forward throughout the movie that I was like, maybe he's not such a bad guy.
Yeah, and also
he's
when
okay.
when Fjolnir like starts crying, you know, when they first bring his son out to him, you know, and like and the queen goes over to him, he's like, you have to compose yourself. It's like this like
He's cold as hell.
yeah, like you cannot be shown. No, but I mean, like she's all about survival. You
Yeah,
know what I
she's
mean?
smart.
She's like, no. Like
Get
you
up.
can, like get the fuck up. Like these men will feel sympathy for you for a little while,
Yeah,
but
like 5 minutes.
yeah, like 5 minutes. But it's like if you keep this shit up, they're gonna think you're like you bleed sugar water, and they're not going to want that. Like
No, and they already, like, from their perspective exclusively, not ours, of course, they were already on the verge of having, like, a slave revolution, which I imagine out in the middle of nowhere with, like, 50 slaves is not great.
yeah, that shit would suck. Because I mean, no matter what, that slave revolt would get put down real quick, right? I mean, like it would take 2 longboats worth of men to just come through and be like, calm the fuck down.
Yeah, but they have to
That's
get there
enough.
first, and now they've lost so many men that there's
That's
a
true. I mean,
real
like they could have
shot.
scattered to the wind. Oh, you know, another thing that I thought about this movie that connects to the movie that we watched last week, Lamb. You know, because both of these movies are quote unquote set in Iceland. You know, I thought that it was really interesting how this movie pretty much does kind of confirm the fact that because of the rolling hill aspect of Iceland, you can kind of just hide. You know what I mean? Like on the other side of like a curb, and,
hill.
and no one will see you.
You could have a minotaur on your property, and you might never know.
Yeah, you might never know. Yep.
It's a very real risk.
Hey, but
I mean, if anything,
Or a
where
jogger.
was Ram Man during all this spirit action in the camp? Now that we're talking about
no,
not
he
his
would have shot
problem.
him.
it, yeah, he would have brought his rifle
Yeah, he
from
would have
home.
brought his rifle.
They don't have
From
sheep.
Ramtown.
I don't care.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
showed up, no sheep.
No sheep.
No
Yeah.
sheep.
Worthless.
I was so tempted. Yeah, what you said about Fjolnir being maybe not such a bad guy. Maybe this is just like part of this genre, but
Oh, he also did pet the dog, so
Yeah,
not
that's
such
true.
a bad guy.
yeah, you know, by the
He
end of the
had
movie,
dogs.
That he had to, I mean, the dog did try to almost rip his throat off. So I mean, that's one of the only times I will be like, okay, put down your dog, because I mean,
you gotta stab
yeah.
the dog, unfortunately.
He pet the dog and he nurtured his son, which, just to throw it out there, he's the only character that I saw nurture a child in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had this strong inclination by the end of the movie, and maybe it's just because of that scene in, what is it, Revenge of the Sith? But it was like, I have the high ground now.
I was thinking
And
this is how the
you're done.
Vikings fought in Mustafar. You know what I mean? In the
Right.
beginning of their history.
Yeah.
A little bit of credit to like one of the very final scenes is when Fjolnir is killed. The beheading scene there slowed down just like a little bit. So cool. So well done.
Oh yeah.
Very satisfying.
Yeah, it's so cool to think about the fact that he's like, I have to give him the in. I have to give him the in of like stabbing me in the chest for me to be able to have like the opportunity to be able to then cut his head off. Like,
Yeah, and is there something at play here too about, because his mom said something about being stabbed in the heart and like thanking him. He also got stabbed in the heart when he died. Do you need to be stabbed in the heart to go to?
no, you just need to die in battle. As far as I understand, you just. Need to die.
Okay. Because he also Fjolnir was all butthurt about not having his kid's heart. He was like, "Where is it? I need the heart." You know. So what is the significance?
I'm sure that a pristine body is always best.
Sure.
I would
Yeah.
be pretty upset burying my child.
Yeah, I would
without their
imagine.
heart.
I would imagine that they probably feel right that it can go two ways. Maybe being beheaded is maybe that's something we can look up afterward. Like maybe there's some sort of like disrespect to being beheaded, because it's like if you die beheaded, then it's like, do you have to deal with that in the afterlife?
Also, there was the thing about he chopped off somebody's head and then shoved the head under their butt.
Yeah, when he killed the Draugr.
Yeah. What was that about?
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Why do you take the head and put it in the butt?
Disrespect to your yeah.
It's just like teabagging, but old fashioned.
Yeah, the old fashioned teabagging, because the body's eventually gonna shit.
You
So-
loser.
Yeah, you're gonna shit on your own face.
Yeah,
you idiot.
exactly.
That's what you get.
I feel like as a berserker, that's probably exactly what he was taught. You know what I mean? Like, this
Yeah.
is what you do. Like, you chop off their head and then you stuff their
Stick in their ass.
stick it in their ass. So that way, when their people find them, they're like, "Oh, what the fuck?"
No, that way, their whole trip to Valheim, they gotta smell their own
Yeah.
shit.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a good point, honestly, Jose. It probably does have something to do with that. When I initially heard it, I was thinking, like, not in the face, quick and painless. Almost guaranteed kill. But that makes a ton of sense, is you're super intact for not only your burial that might take place in front of your whole, like, household and everybody who lives on your property, but also your trip to the afterlife.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's like, do the ghosts follow like Harry Potter rules, where like if you're headless or like nearly headless, like you're just gonna end up like in that.
What a cruel universe. People die in some pretty terrible ways.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other lingering thoughts before we get to ratings?
Final thoughts.
Performances, crushed it. Everybody
Epic.
crushed it.
Skarsgård was a monster. Like, when I think Berserker from now on, I'm gonna think of this character.
Right.
You know.
He did so good.
Oh my god. Yeah. Too short on Defoe. But the
More
like
Defoe.
the scale. I am all. I don't know. Probably humanity is a sucker for epics, and this one was done extremely well. It was just over 2 hours. It didn't feel like it at all. Not at all. After the first scene where I started to get really invested in the movie, it was like the blink of an eye, and then they were on Mustafar.
Yeah.
Man,
Cast
what a
lineup.
great epic.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, from a second viewing's perspective, I will agree the fact that the pace never really lets up. Like, it's nice because the movie starts, kind of slow, especially if you don't, without the full context of the story that's going to come at you. The beginning is just kind of like up in the air. 100% agree with that. Second viewing most certainly bakes and cements the beginning as a much stronger feature.
Yep.
Than otherwise. And the chapter 1 introduction of him being a berserker, just revving it at all cylinders. They bring it back down a good amount in order for him to be able to reassert himself in his main goal. Bake him into the slaves. They get to the chieftain's place, and what I was always worried, even watching the movie from the first time, was like, oh, it's gonna get kind of slow here, isn't it? But he doesn't let up when it comes to his plans whatsoever. Like they give you one series of scenes of him being like a very formidable slave, and then right afterward, it's like the fox gets there and like they're off to go meet the he witch, and then
get the sword,
and then begin the vengeance plot. I'm like, oh yeah, fuck yeah,
I loved the haunting in the meantime. Like, I can't kill him yet. It doesn't fit with the Fate story. I'm going to walk this place like a ghost.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really, really cool. I'm a little bit confused by the death of Fjolnir at the end, because I thought he was supposed to be drowned in either the lake of fire or his own blood, and it was
the
beheading.
fates are always, close.
And I'm sure that
Prophecy.
the volcano just began erupting today. So I mean, it might be the case that by night's end they'll both be covered in lava. So
Oh shit! I was supposed to kill him tomorrow. No, it could be. It just because it said drowning, it made me wonder if it was like a nod to the magic not necessarily being infallible.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Hmm.
I mean, yeah, that's another interesting aspect in the sense that like, what does fate really mean aside from your desire to want to follow it in that way, right? Because he had every capacity and every ability to be able to just stay with Olga on that boat and get to Orkney, and then if anything, defend it from there. It's like, okay,
Well,
I
y'all
get to
don't have the internet. How's he gonna find you?
what?
I don't know why he was. I think it was kind of a cop out. Like I think he couldn't let go of the anger.
Yeah.
Because I don't
Yeah.
think he was actually worried for his children's safety because they're not gonna find him. And that guy, after losing one of his sons, is probably gonna cut his losses and keep his farm.
That's a very good point in relation to like, again, the rationalizations, what I mean, of an individual who believes in the concepts of fate like that, of being like, okay, so I just got this vision, right, that this lady's pregnant with my kids. All right, so now I can answer the riddle that I was given in the way that I want to answer it.
Hmm.
In the sense that I will give, I will, show mercy to my kin who are my children, and then hate to my enemies. When, I mean, in reality, that honestly does not sound like the way that the riddle was supposed to be read whatsoever.
No, but he ended Fjolnir's line. He progressed his own line, and he died in battle. He got everything that he
a
might have
Viking
wanted.
berserker would genuinely want, right? Yeah, because I would imagine that he also doesn't want to die some gray beard, so it's like,
No. Not after all the respect for his father and all the idolizing. I highly doubt it.
yeah, exactly. So it's like, where does a man like that even really fit in once their blood mission has been completed?
Fit
He's
into
got to
the
sit
coffin.
outside the city for a week.
For a week, yeah.
You can't let him in.
No. Hmm. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, who knows what kind of ennui he would fall into, had he survived. And now, I mean, it's not like he's got a kingdom to go back to,
Right.
like it isn't as though he's going to go and get his throne back or anything like that. It's like, no, like that shit's gone. Like,
Mm.
That's Norway's. No.
yeah, and they ain't about to give that back.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, other than that, Eggers does really good with Firelight.
Yeah.
Good job, Eggers.
Yeah, what a dark but also really well done, moody feeling movie.
It reminded me a lot of The Witch over and over again, watching
yeah.
all the lighting.
And Anya Taylor-Joy's face with the flame light
Yeah,
bouncing off
that
of
helps.
it.
Yeah, pretty good.
So what'd you give it?
I was coming off about a 4.5 after this talk. Yeah, 4.55, somewhere in there. There's not a whole lot. I mean, it's a fucking classic story, right?
Yeah.
Tale as old as time. There's nothing about it that doesn't strike at like what we value as humans. And great storytelling, great cinematography, great acting. Nailed it. I'm glad we did this one.
Mm,
Yeah.
absolutely.
How about you?
I'm also stuck a little bit on 4.5 to a 5. I feel like my only thing that makes me want to jump to a 4.5 is I feel like the story over the full term of it was a little bit back and forth and following different threads that, I don't know, for a while for me became a little bit convoluted. Not to any it didn't really hurt the movie. I really enjoyed the movie, but it made me wonder if I was 100% a 5. So I'm probably 4.75.
Solid.
I'm gonna get just berated by Kimmy later
Yeah.
because I was like, you can't do
That's the
10s.
first thing I thought
split
about.
Stars.
But it is a really tough choice because I don't know if it's 100%. You know what? I'm just gonna give it a 5. I'm gonna stick to my regular ruling because I think I lean up and I really enjoyed this, and the cast lineup was phenomenal. Performances were great, and this movie was really empowering. So 5.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna give this one a dull 5. Not a super shining 5.
Like a 4.75.
Thereabouts. Yeah, but I can't really bring it down in terms of stars because it's like in terms of this genre of movie, let's say, right? I haven't really seen any other Nordic based aesthetic movie like this sans 20 years ago with Beowulf. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can't think of a single one.
That even came close. And like Beowulf was like, that one I feel would be a good movie to re-rendition nowadays with our better CGI and our better like ability to be able to intermix like CGI and conventional effects, because that back in the day was like almost all CGI. And
It's rough.
it looks it most certainly doesn't hold up to time, but that feeling, that feeling is exactly there in the same exact way. Like thinking about like that Viking funeral scene in Beowulf and him actually fighting like Grendel like all naked and stuff like that. It makes me think about this, like the Berserker aspect about this movie and stuff like that. And it's like, in terms of that genre and that encapsulation of genres, right? 5 out of 5. Like this is what other Nordic-based movies have to go and contend against in order to be able to try to
100%.
either bring this movie down and then they be 5s, or match them essentially from here on out,
Yeah. It sounds like you're saying it's like a 5 out of 5 in the sense like you answered all the questions on the test correctly.
Exactly. Yeah, no, and that's why I'm giving it a dull 5. Like it's a trendsetter, you know what I mean? And because there is nobody else that I can like really put face to face, like in a face-off situation to like compare it with, I have to be fair and give them the full points because they did, like you said, answer every single question. Ska! Yeah, no, that was totally great. The viscerality about the movie, the little the quippy one-liners and the wise one-liners, those were absolutely wonderful. The universally humanistic story of like how far is revenge justified, it's like
how much can you let hate into your heart?
Because like nobody's telling him you're wrong in relation to what you're doing. Like, hey, listen, like we get it, it's like you 100% have a reason to be angry, but at the same time it's like at one point or another you can say that the fates have weaved this for you, but I mean, like, make a different sweater, like
if you want to.
Yeah, this movie brings us all the way to that line because, usually in movies it's like at what point does this vengeance, tirade still benefit me? But it kind of gets pushed to like, will I give up everything that I have for this?
Right. And
that's what makes it a tragedy.
Exactly. And on top of that, because he's cursed, I mean, like, this isn't, if we're going to take the magic seriously, right? His dad essentially placed the curse on him the day before he died, and
Ace in the hole.
Yeah, essentially he's in the hole because, again, like, he's never going to be able to sleep soundly knowing that Fjolnir's out there. It doesn't, like, we're talking about a man who, if he had left on that boat with Olga, would probably be racked with fucking paranoia every moment of his life while he was out there.
Mm-hmm.
Probably, but you also have to consider, because this is what I get stuck on, like, if his mother was telling the truth, then he's expending a lot of energy and giving up a lot of things to have over avenging a piece of shit.
But not a piece of shit to him, I mean, like, because his father was still his father and a great king from his perspective,
Yeah.
I mean, like, his mother, from her perspective, can have 100% justified, and good reasons for having had the conspiracy to occur, right? Again, all victims here. Nobody here is the villain because everybody did what they believed was the appropriate thing to do.
Yep.
So, so because of that, I mean, like, everybody's just fates are just, drawn out in that way. It's like
the inevitability of violence.
Yeah. Well, and this story just really ties back to like, people are complicated. It's not usually a situation where you have a clear villain and a clear hero, in more real world situations. People are complicated and people's stories are complicated, and you can empathize with anybody if you're looking at it from their perspective.
Right. Always seeking to be wise, but everyone, must be wise enough to also be the fool. And everybody in this movie was. Like that, though, that one little line does essentially encapsulate everybody in this movie, because everyone thinks that they're doing the wisest course of action relative to themselves. You know, the king believed that by putting Amleth in this position and letting his queen know that, hey, I'm hurt, you know what I mean? We need to go do this ritual real quick, you know, just so things can be solidified. He didn't realize that in those hours that he was gone tripping, like that's when the conspiracy, you know what I mean, set afoot.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
know, and it's like, and Amleth thinking that him, you know, committing vengeance of his father is the absolute appropriate thing to do, you know, while all reality his mother doesn't want it. You know, he doesn't have a kingdom to actually save. And in all reality, I mean, all those birds that he could be seeing are just fucking crows that follow battlefields. I mean, we all know that ravens eat carrion, so I mean, it's not like,
That's true.
you know,
Yeah.
I mean, he saw what he wanted to see, right? I mean, like, that's another aspect of like following an individual who believes in like the significance of symbols and like the significance of signs in that way. Be like, oh shit, a raven looked at me real funny today. You know what I mean?
Couple of them. Even.
Yeah, a couple of them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
real expectantly. Father?
hmm?
Father?
Well, and similarly, you know, Fjolnir was trying to secure a safe and good life for his child, you know?
Yeah.
And probably the woman he loves too, and his upcoming child. It's just, it's messy. It's
It's all very messy.
all very messy.
Great movie.
Yeah, 100%.
Great movie.
And with that, we seal the fates and give them